This is the sort of practice piece we're going to make. Here are the gadroons on this side, and you can see the layout on this side. So we start with obviously a blank piece of moulding, and I'll put the details of this end profile in the download and how I went about making it. So we have the profile. What's important in this piece is that we have two sort of spare pieces of wood. We have a piece of wood down here and a piece of wood up here, and this piece of wood down here is called the quirk, and it's the part of the business that goes into the moulding. This piece is usually called a fillet, and this is a piece that would go up against something else, and these are important pieces of wood from a carving point of view. So how do we go about laying this gadroon out? And I would say that you can see this is faceted, and of course that we carve it as smoothly as possible, and then we would sand that very smooth, because this smoothness, these drop-like forms, is really quite an important feature. So let's just look at how to lay that out. So what I did with my piece of wood is I took a strip of paper that just fits on the wood itself, so that's fitting over the moulding part, and I sort of drew the sort of curve that I wanted the gadroon to take. So I thought it would look something like this. So having got that curve, I can divide that up and put a centered outline down, because what is happening is, if you notice here, the top of the gadroon passes over twice the width of the bottom end. So here's the bottom end, and this is passing one into the second one. So this is the slope of the gadroon. And also, as it comes to the bottom here, it's pretty much square on, because now at the bottom it's going to make the rounded bit. So we're coming round, square on. So I worked out a sort of shape that I like, and obviously this is a left hand and that's a right hand one. They do come handed depending on where it is in the bit of furniture or whatever. So from there I did the same thing, but I did it on a bit of sticky back label. So I transferred it to label, and then I found myself a piece of tin. Could be a tin can or some sort of thin plastic. Stuck my drawing on here and then cut it out. So here I have a template that fits when I've bent it. You see, I've bent it to fit over. That actually fits that shape there, so that I can move that round. So going to my blank part here, I know that my moulding distance is such and such, because I worked that from my paper, whatever that was. So I can mark off here the distance of the repeat. Then I got another bit of tin that was bent and at right angles, and by putting this over I can draw accurately my lines like so. Oops. And I would take them all the way down to the end here, like that. And then I use my second template to mark square up here. Oh, this is slightly different from the other one, but I would mark that to there like that. So I'd mark this along here. So I'd mark each one like so. So using these two templates, I can end up with a pattern like this. And that's my starting point. So you need to prepare a piece of wood. Use a very easy carvable wood. The sycamore I'm going to use later is quite a hard wood, but this is gelaton, could use lime, something that's fairly easy for you to practice on. And lay the design out like this with a repeat pattern, merging into the top here, like that, coming square on here, and this will be where our rounded bit in. But we don't need to actually draw that. So get that ready, and then we're ready to have a go at carving it. One of the problems with this moulding is that I'm going to have to come down with my tool like this, and probably come down like this. So I'm way below what would be a bench level here. So I need to have some way of lifting this carving up. I'm using a pattern maker's vise like this, but you need to find some sort of support that lifts it up, that allows you to get in at these sort of angles. And the other thing is, I've got it lifted up at a nice height for me to work, so I'm not crouched down and straining my back. So I've got my lines here, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use this V-tool, which is also called a parting tool because of what it's doing now, which is separating one part from another. And we're going to run it on this line. Now we have a choice of, do we run it on the actual line, or what I'm going to do is actually run it to one side. So my first cut comes from in the fillet here where it joins there, and it's going to come up, and we're going to come around so that the line is on the outside, or one side, sorry, the cut is on one side of the line, and it's going up and over like that. And this side of the line that I've chosen is with the grain, so this way is with the grain. And I'm going to tear a little bit, possibly, into that gadroon there. But it's still early days, and that's not going to be a problem. So I'm going to come up round like this, make my first cut, following the line, and when I come over the top, like that, I'm going to come down right over to where it starts going vertical. What we mustn't do is actually lose control and stab into this quirk down the bottom here. So I come up and around like that. And then I make a second cut over here with the next one. And because it's a type of moulding, I try and do the same cut each time with the same tool. So I'm only going to do a few of these just to demonstrate how they work. So I'd be doing this first of all. So there's my sort of like a preliminary cut, which just sets them in position. And I'll go back over, and I'm going to make this a lot deeper, still to one side of the line. On a hardwood you could use a mallet. Now the gadroon, what's interesting is it does come off this here like this, so you do want to make sure that's nicely, it doesn't come to a sort of flat edge here, they just sweep out from that line there. And depending on the wood, I can do this a third time and gradually make this division between the gadroons deeper. Now if that's tearing up a lot, especially down here, then I'm going to have to reverse that cut on this side so that the V chisel on this side is actually going with the grain on that part of the wood. So either I'll flip the carving round, or I'll swap over if I can get at it from the back here. But with this wood I'm actually okay for the moment, so I'm going to run all those. Do a few more over here. At the end of this stage you can see I've got strong V cuts all the way through and down, and just stopping short of the fillet of the quirk, rather at the bottom here. So keep them as equal as possible, but it is hand carved, so to some extent they will be slightly different, but as long as we get this nice fluid line and that rhythm, we'll be okay. The next stage is to make a little bit of shaping on this surface. The grain in this piece of wood goes in this direction, like this. What it means is that on a groove like this, which has got two sides to it, one side is going to be with the grain and the other side is going to be against it. Very much like sharpening a pencil. You sharpen with the downhill like this, downhill on the fibres. So that's going to be a factor here. So what we want is a curve that goes from this groove here to that groove there. So we'll be picking our tools to give us a varying amount of curve. We can make this very deep, or we can make it quite shallow. That's up to us as to how we carve the gadroon. What I would do is I'd start off on working this way with the grain, and I'd use a flat gouge like this, and I'd just take off some of that corner here like this. That just gives me a bit of a start. What I'll do now is I'll take a curved gouge and I'll start running up here like this, and then this is curving this surface, so the bottom corner is sitting in that root of the V. It's coming up and down like this, and as I get over here, I'm coming around the bottoms up, and I can swap to this fine grip, push that down now like this. So this is coming up almost to halfway. Now to do the other side, depending on where I'm positioned, either I can just come over the other side like this, but then that becomes awkward for me where I'm standing, or I need to flip the work around. So that's what I'm going to do now. Like this. And now I can tackle the second side. One of the things that happens geometrically is that the curve here is a tighter radius, is a narrower part of a circle, arc of a circle, than here. So this is actually flatter. So this tool, you'll find that at some point the corner here, the loose corner, is going to tend to dig in. So you'll need to swap to a larger tool once we start getting the curve proper. A tool that will go from one side to the other much more evenly, like this. So you will need to adjust the tools. But once you find the tool, you do the same thing, the same gadroon as we go along. So once I've done that once, for me this isn't quite deep enough. So what I would do is I would go back and I'd repeat the whole process. I'd put the V tool in here, not so deep here because this is feathering to nothing, but as we come over here, I'd push that down a little bit further. So I'd make a second pass, trying to keep that same curve, like so. By doing everything, repeating everything as we go along, we'll get an evenness of carving, which is important. So having gone a bit deeper, I can now go a little bit deeper with this on this side, this direction. So go a little bit deeper on this side. And as I come down here, I've got to be careful not to dig this corner into the fillet at the top. Like so, so we just feather out. And then as we come over here, I'm swapping to my larger tool. So what we don't want in this carving is any flatness left. And some of it will be taken out with the sanding, but make sure that goes right the way across. Like so. Then the other thing we can do to make those deeper is to take our flat gouge and drop it. In fact, I'll use a little bit wider one. Drop it into that groove there and push it or stab it into the groove like this. That gives us a really sharp angle between the two. It's resting on the wall, right over like that. And if we want, we can take a little bit out of here to make sure that's really tight. So a little bit of an angle cut in here gives us a really sharp line, and that's what we want, because the V-tool has this slight curve at the bottom where the metal of the keel is. So to get that sharper, we need to just crisp that up with, and that will be one of the last things we do. So I'm going to work the whole thing over, make it as deep as I want. I'm coming this way on that part, and as I come over here and my tool isn't right, I'm swapping to a wider one here, like so, coming this way, and I'm going to bring that all the way down to here. So it comes all the way down. Make sure that's so I've come down to just short of the bottom. I've got a nice surface going this way, over here, nice fluid line this way. I've got a tight junction like this, and I've got no flats as I go across. Now I've torn that up a little bit there, so what I have to do is I have to make sure that's all repaired, because I will be sanding this to a finish, but sanding is a very light thing really, and we want to make sure this is as tight as possible before we actually get into the sandpaper. So a little bit of backwards and forwards on that, and a little bit of that slicing cut. Make sure these surfaces are finished, and they come all the way down, all the way over. And here we're going across the grain, so that's fairly easy, but with a little bit of a slice like this. And we check that one gadroon is done, and we can move on to the next one to make sure. So we've got a final pass to make sure that this part is nice and smoothly carved, and then we're left with this bit down the bottom. So I brought the junction between the gadroons down as far as I dare, remembering I don't want to stab into this bit, into the quirk down the bottom. So using the gouge which covers this bit here, I'm going to start working that down like this, towards the bottom a bit more. So I'm almost on the quirk here. But what I am going to do is going to take the gouge which is a little bit tighter, and I'm going to come down and round into each one like this. So I'm going to try and make more of that and a little bit more of this, so make a bigger shadow in there. So this is coming around like this. And this piece of wood here can start coming away like this. And eventually, as I come down to the bottom here, I can come right the way around like this. You can undercut this a little bit and take a little bit more off here. You can undercut here so you can come round and underneath a little bit, give a little bit of shadow, but not too much, or else you alter the line of this edge here. So round. Round. And then I'll use a flat gouge. That's a gravity effect. Use a flat gouge to just take away this bit of wood in here, cleaning up to the remaining of wood here. One more time. I'm pushing that corner down in there like that. And you might need a skew chisel to get in there eventually into here, but you should be able to come in from the side like this. So clean all that up, And we don't want anything left of the original junction here where the moulding wood came down. So take this and make sure that's all cleaned away. You can't see that. And check the whole thing over. And the next thing we need to do is sand it. The sanding is a fairly tedious part of the work, so you really want to be as clean as you can, as near as you can with the carving before you take on the sandpaper. But there's nothing special about the sanding. You would start with a lower, or rather a coarser grit, so this is 120, work through perhaps 180 to 240, whatever the wood needs. One little trick here is to fold the sandpaper, use small bits. You can fold into 3, for example, and then you can get this into this groove here, like this. So essentially that's the end. I've only really done these 2, but this shows you how the thing works. What we're looking for is a nice smooth line round here, coming into a ball, and that beautiful smoothness, that flow, is really what makes a gadroon such an attractive piece. So again, we need to be clean here and clean here on these bits of wood, coming down and clean under here, but lovely and smooth and equal. And the trick is to do the same thing, like all mouldings, the same thing as often as you can with each gadroon, working the whole thing from the drawing through to this finish, one step at a time.